Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the real math of the American wealth ladder. We've got some genuinely fascinating data from the Federal Reserve, and we're not just throwing around textbook definitions here. We are looking at the hard, cold numbers to figure out where people actually stand.
So, lower, middle, or upper class, which one are you? If I put you on the spot right now, how would you answer? Because most of us just instantly think about our paycheck, the neighborhood we live in, or maybe the car parked in the driveway. But here's the thing, wealth class actually has nothing to do with any of that. It all boils down to one single number. And honestly, once people actually calculate that number, they usually realize they're not quite where they thought they were.
Okay, let's get into the reality of it. Your income is not your wealth. Your net worth is. That single number determines exactly where you sit on the wealth ladder, and the math is super simple. Net worth is literally everything you own. Assets like your house, savings, 401k, minus everything you owe. All those liabilities like the mortgage, car loans, student debt, and those credit card balances.
Let's put a face to this to see how it plays out in the real world. Meet Tyler. He's a 34-year-old marketing manager pulling in a really solid $85,000 a year. He rents a nice place, drives a decent 2022 sedan, puts a little bit away in his 401k. By all accounts, Tyler feels securely middle class. But if we run his actual numbers, the story totally flips. For his assets, he's got a car worth 22 grand, 12,000 in his retirement account, and 3 grand in savings. That's $37,000 total. But for his liabilities, he still owes 18 grand on that car and 26,000 in student loans, which equals $44,000 in debt. Here's the gut punch. When you take his 37,000 in assets and subtract that 44,000 in debt, Tyler's net worth is negative $7,000. Even with a really great salary, that specific math places him squarely in the bottom 25% of American households. Let's talk a bit more about that bottom 25% bracket. This covers anyone with a net worth under $23,000, and honestly, a huge chunk of this group is sitting at or below zero. Now, people usually assume this bracket is just entry-level minimum wage workers, right? Absolutely not. It is packed with people earning 60, 80, even over 100 grand a year who are completely trapped in lifestyle creep. The money comes in, and the money goes straight out to car payments, loans, and rent. They have high debt, zero home equity, and they're funding a very comfortable lifestyle without building any actual wealth.
Moving up a step to the lower middle class, which ranges from $23,000 to $179,000, we see a massive shift. The vast majority of net worth in this group is wrapped up in home equity. Most folks don't make it to this bracket by being stock market wizards. They get here just by buying a house and essentially forcing themselves to lock wealth away every time they pay down their mortgage.
Keep climbing, and we hit a very specific milestone, exactly $193,000. This is the dead center, the midpoint of American household wealth. Half of all households have more than this, and half have less. When people hear this number, it's funny. They usually think it sounds either insanely low because they've been reading too many flashy headlines, or hopelessly high because they feel so far away from it. But beneath that $193,000 median is some serious hidden fragility. If you strip away the home equity, because you can't quickly cash in your roof to buy groceries or cover a medical emergency, the median household only actually has about $30,000 to $40,000 in liquid financial cushion. And that perfectly explains why just one unexpected event, like a layoff, can send a seemingly comfortable family totally spiraling. Now, as we enter the upper middle class, anywhere between $193,000 and $610,000, something fundamental changes. The whole asset mix shifts into this balanced 50-50 split between home equity and actual investments. People here are highly intentional. They're consistently funding retirement accounts and using strategic low-interest debt. This bracket is literally a launchpad. It's where exponential compound growth really kicks into high gear, which makes the climb to the next level significantly faster than the initial climb up from zero. Then, you cross the $610,000 threshold, and just like that, you are officially in the upper class, representing the top 25% of American households. This breakdown right here brilliantly illustrates the real secret of the wealthy. At this level, there's an inversion. Financial assets completely dominate the net worth, making up 70 to 75% of the entire pie. The house, it's no longer the biggest asset. The investment portfolio is. And all the research points to the fact that this is usually built through decades of boring, disciplined investing. It's not just about having a flashy six-figure income. There are plenty of high earners who never make it here simply because it's about what you keep and invest, not just what you earn.
Finally,
Hitting the top 10% requires a net worth of around $1.72 million. And at this tier, wealth just works entirely differently. If you have that $1.72 million invested and it earns a super conservative 4% annual return, it generates about $69,000 a year in purely passive income. You don't even have to touch the principal. Basically, your money is now generating more income than the median American household earns from actually going to work. This is where true financial independence becomes a reality.
Moving to our next section, the age plot twist, and why comparing yourself to the overall median is basically a lie.
So everything we've looked at so far has this huge glaring blind spot. Comparing a 25-year-old who just graduated to a 65-year-old retiree using the exact same benchmark makes absolutely zero sense. Once you adjust for age, you see this very natural curve. For households under 35, the median is about $39,000. Jump to the 45 to 54 range, and it climbs to $247,000. It eventually peaks between ages 65 and 74 at $410,000. I mean, logically, your wealth should grow as you have more years to let compound interest do its thing and pay down your debt.
Let's bring this all back to Tyler, our 34-year-old making $85,000. Remember that negative $7,000 net worth? Well, overall, he's in the bottom 25%. But when you compare him strictly to his specific age bracket, where the median is $39,000, his situation suddenly looks a lot more severe. He is actually sitting at the 10th percentile for his age group. Put simply, 90% of the people his age have more wealth than he does.
Context is literally everything here. Take a 45-year-old with a $200,000 net worth. Compared to the overall median, they look totally fine. But for their specific age group, they're actually lagging behind that $247,000 midpoint. Flip it around, though. A 28-year-old with $154,000 might seem lower middle class overall, but for their age, they are in the 75th percentile. They are miles ahead of 3 out of 4 of their peers. So remember, the wealth ladder is definitely not one size fits all.
Which brings us to our final section, 3 paths forward for Tyler.
Tyler's only 34, so he's got decades to change his trajectory. Let's run the compounding math on 3 very different financial scenarios he could choose for the next 20 years. Scenario 1, coasting. Tyler changes absolutely nothing. He just makes minimum payments, tosses a tiny 2% into his 401k, and spends everything else. It takes him over 10 years just to wipe out his student loans. By the time he's 54, his net worth is sitting at roughly $120,000. Sure, it sounds like progress compared to where he started, but he'd still be well below average for his age group even after earning a great salary for 2 solid decades.
But what if he goes with scenario 2 and gets intentional? Tyler decides to cut some discretionary spending, which frees up $700 a month to aggressively smash that debt and boost his investments. Boom, student loans are gone in just 4 years. He then buys a modest house and starts building equity. Fast forward to age 54, and between his investments and his home equity, he's looking at a $500,000 net worth. Literally, just by reallocating the income he already has, he launches himself into the upper middle class and the 75th percentile for his age.
And then there's scenario 3, aggressive. Tyler decides to level up. He switches jobs or starts a side hustle, bumping his income to $110,000. But, and this is key, he lives on his original budget. Now he's investing $1,500 every single month. He crushes his debt, buys a duplex to house hack, slashes his living costs, and builds real estate equity fast. By the time he hits 54, Tyler has achieved a $1 million net worth. He's catapulted from the bottom 10th percentile of his peers straight into the top 25% of all American households.
Notice how absolutely none of those paths required winning the lottery or getting some massive inheritance. It was entirely about the compounding effect of his intentional decisions. The wealth ladder isn't some fixed caste system you're trapped in. People climb it every single day. The most powerful financial advantage you can possibly have isn't a high income. It's knowing exactly where you are right now and understanding the math it takes to get where you want to go.
So, you've got the actual numbers now. You've got the real math to check your own standing, both against the broader population and your specific age group. If you find out you aren't quite where you want to be yet, listen, that's not a failure. It's just data. Looking at the road ahead and knowing the sheer power of compound growth, the only real question left to ask yourself is, which path will you choose to climb?